Vert. All right, guys, I will ask for you to please put any distractions away. Hang with me for the next 19 minutes and lean in if you have any questions. Linear equations have three different main formats: standard form, point slope form, and slope intercept. Standard form, hopefully you've seen it before. It looks like ax plus by equals c. An example of an equation in standard form would be like 2x minus 3y equals 6. Few pieces to be aware of. A, B, and C have to be integer values. What does it mean if a number has to be bigger than 0?
It's a natural.
It can't be negative. It has to be positive. So this number here, notice I gave it to you an example of 2. It has to be positive. Point slope form. If you're given a point on the line and the slope, you can use this format. Here's an example of what it might look like. You might have something like y minus 6 equals 1/2 times x minus 3. I will tell you, always start here. Always start here. You will see why throughout this lesson, but this is really the key format to begin with. Then slope intercept form, probably your favorite. It has the slope next to x. The b represents the y-intercept. And you guys were just working with some y-intercepts. You know that the x-coordinate has to be 0 in order for you to truly work with the y-intercept. Other than that, we reviewed vertical lines. Vertical lines have undefined slopes. And the key to note about vertical lines is if you have a point on your line, the equation of your vertical line is x equals the x-coordinate. For a horizontal line, if you have a point on your line, the equation is y equals the y-coordinate of the point. And you know you have a horizontal line if the slope is 0. All right, let's practice working with these different formats. Example 1, find the equation of the line in all 3 forms. And when they say 3 forms, they mean this form, and this form, because horizontal and vertical lines are really exceptions to the rule. Let's start with example A. Mario.
Because on the paper you can.
There's no real meaning to it. There's just colors there. Yeah, good question. Okay, so for letter A, you have the slope, that's your m. Slope is equal to 2, and you're given a point. We'll call it x1, y1. You should always start, so when you're doing your homework for 1-3b, you want to start with point slope form. If you've never seen point slope form in your past math background, or if it's very foggy to you, keep writing it in your homework until you definitely have it committed to memory. This is what it looks like. Y minus y1 equals m times quantity x minus x1. After you wrote it, see if you can fill in the pieces. So we're going to put the x1 here. We'll put the y1 in here, and we'll use our slope in here. So I'm going to show the y1 is -3, the x1 is 4, and my slope is 2. And then I copy the other pieces of the equation. Y minus -3 equals 2 times quantity x minus 4. And then finally I simplify. What happens when you minus a negative? Add it. Good. So we have y plus 3 equals 2 times quantity x minus 4. That's one of the forms. So I can go ahead and box it and say I now have point slope form. That's one. I have to do 2 more. Now, how can I go from here to slope intercept form? Which variable is by itself in slope intercept form? Y. So all I need to do is get y alone. I'll distribute the 2, and that would give me 2x minus 8. And so I have y plus 3 is equal to 2x minus 8. And I need to continue to get y by itself. So what am I going to do with the plus 3? Subtract it, subtract 3, subtract 3. And that would give me y is equal to 2x minus 11. And that's another form, slope-intercept. So I can go ahead and box that. I am 2/3 of the way complete. What is the last form I need to put it into? Standard. Which variable comes first in standard? The a with the x. Good. So what am I going to do with 2x? Subtract it to the other side. So I'll have negative 2x plus y is equal to negative 11. Is that good for standard form? No. What has to happen with the number next to the x? Has to be positive. Has to be positive. So how am I going to make that -2 positive? Allison? Divide everything by -1, or you could say multiply everything by -1. I think I've worked out a few for you in your homework in case you're unsure how to start, and I just showed multiplying by -1. So I'll stick with that, but you could have divided everything by -1. So I'll distribute, and that will give me 2x minus y is equal to positive 11. And that is the equation of this line in standard form.
Scroll back up to the second one.
Mhm. That's,
How do you know it's supposed to be y plus 3?
because I had to start in point slope form.
Okay,
So I started with that equation and then I plugged in the point,
so you're just working from there.
working from there. Always, always start in point slope form. All right, let's move on to letter B. Letter B, again, I have a slope. And I have a point. I have my x1, y1. So I'm going to start with point slope form. Because this one is so important, you have to know it to be able to start there. Let's rewrite it. It is y minus y1 equals m times parentheses x minus x1. And I plug in the values of x, y, and the slope. So I'll plug in -4 in for x1. I'll plug in 6 for y1. And I'm going to plug my slope in as 2/3. So I have 6, -4, and 2/3. And then that would create y minus 6 equals 2/3 times quantity x minus -4. What happens when you minus a negative? Comes a positive, so we have y minus 6 equals 2/3 times quantity x plus 4. That's one of the forms, so I'm going to go ahead and box it. There's my point slope form. Which form should we convert to next? Slope intercept. Which variable do we have to get by itself? Y. So I'll go ahead and distribute. Peter, are you guys okay? Okay, so I'll go ahead and distribute the 2/3. And that'll create a 2/3 x plus, we've worked a lot with fractions here in Algebra 2. Hopefully you remember that you have to put 4/1, and then you multiply the numerators and the denominators. So 2 times 4 gives you 8, 3 times 1 gives you 3, and we have y minus 6 is equal to 2/3 x plus 8/3. What's the last thing I have to do to get y by itself? Add 6. And that will leave me with y is equal to 2/3 x plus, we've worked with this in the past. How do you add 8/3 plus 6? Good, we need a common denominator. So if I put 6/1, what would I have to multiply that by? 3/3? What's 6 times 3? 18. What's 18 plus 8? 26. So we'd have 26/3. And that would be slope intercept.
That's still unstable to me, I don't know.
Why what? Because tonight's homework, you will always have to put it in standard form. And with the information given to you, this is the only way to really do it. Because we don't know what A is, you don't know what B is, and you don't know what C is unless you actually do the algebra work. Good question. John? Yeah, just keep it there. You're good. If you're graphing it, you'd want to make it into a mixed number or a decimal. Okay, last but not least, we need to convert it to standard. So which variable do I need to move to the other side? X, good. I'm going to subtract it. So I'd have negative 2/3 x plus y is equal to 26/3. We have worked with this type of equation so much here in Algebra 2. You should know how to eliminate all the fractions in one easy step. How can I get rid of those fractions? Multiply by, Allison? The least common denominator. What's the least common denominator here?
3.
3. Awesome. So I'm going to multiply this side by 3 and this side by 3. If you're saying -3, you're saving yourself a step. But I'll just go ahead and stick with 3 for right now. If I distribute that in, the first piece, the 3's cancel, and I have -2x. I do need to distribute, so I'd have plus 3y is equal to 26. God bless you. And what would be, what would be the last thing we'd have to do to put this in the standard form? Divide everything by -1, or you could say multiply everything by -1. What? I times it by 3/1. And that gives me 2x minus 3y is equal to -26. And I box it. All right. Distribute. Okay, this is my standard form. And I'm finished with those two. What'd you say? Tuesday, next week, Tuesday. All right, on to the next example. Find the equation of the line. Again, in all three forms. Tonight's homework, you will just be putting it in standard form. But in order to use standard form, you really need to know how to convert between all three. When you start, you should start in point slope form. When you have point slope form, there's two main pieces that you need. You need a point, which is an x1, y1, and a slope, which is an m. Looking at the next problem at hand, they were nice in the fact that they gave you 2 points on your line. They gave you 0, 2, which is an x1, y1, and they gave you point D, which is an x2, y2. What did they not give you? Slope. But do we know how to find the slope? We would take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I plug it in. So I would have -1 minus 2 over 5 minus 0. What's -1 minus 2? -3. And I have 5 is my denominator. Now, point slope form is where you need to start. Do you have it memorized by now? If so, try to write it. If not, use the previous page. You can't. You have to get rid of it. Multiply everything by the LCD.
So in this case, I got
And multiply everything by 5. All right, guys, this is the form. Here's the thing. You can use the first point or you can use the second point because they are both points on your line. For consistency, I'll use the first point. So I'm going to plug in 2 in for y1, 0 in for x1. So I have 2, I have 0, and my slope is -3/5. And that would create y minus 2 equals -3/5 times x minus 0. That's point slope. I could go ahead and box that because that's one of the forms. What would I do next? Which variable should I get alone? Y, good. So I'll distribute the -3/5. And that would give me y minus 2 is equal to -3/5 x. Do I have to distribute it to the 0? No, because 0 times anything is just 0. And then how do I finally get y by itself? Add 2. So I would move that over. And that would give me y is equal to -3/5 x plus 2. Allison. If I ask you for all 3 forms, in fact, next week's quiz, I will just have it labeled point slope form with a blank, slope intercept with a blank, and then standard with a blank, and you'll just put them in the places. Good question. Tonight's homework, you're just putting them all into standard form. All right, so let's go ahead and continue to put this into standard form. What would I need, which variable would I need to move over to the other side? X, so I'd add that over. And I would have 3/5 x plus y is equal to 2. How do I get rid of that fraction? Because I can't have fractions. Multiply everything by 5. Multiply this side by 5 and this side by 5. When you distribute, what happens to the 5s? They cancel, and we have 3x plus 5y is equal to 10. This next example is the easiest of all that we've done. So see if you see how far you can get on it. I'll be doing it up on the screen. Katie. I multiplied by 5 because you can't have a fraction in standard form. So we have to multiply. You need to cancel out the 5. Good question. Because the a value in front of x has to be positive. So like if you go back to the form of standard form, yeah, if it's negative. The a value has to be positive. Right, the other one, this one, it was already positive.
Is this like less than recorded?
Yes. Slope here, I'll go ahead and work through it. We might have to switch seats one more time, guys. I'm seeing a lot of distractions with this new seating chart. So let's just really try to, when you come in on Friday, tomorrow, really try to stay focused. We can switch seats again, but I'm seeing a lot of people unfocused with this new seating chart. If you had it in here, this would be point slope. You would distribute the 1. You'd have y plus 3 is equal to x plus 2. You'd subtract 3. And you would have y is equal to x minus 1. That's point slope. That's slope intercept. For standard, you'd subtract x. You'd have negative x plus y equals -1. But you can't have x being negative, so you times it by a -1, and there's standard form.
So
All right.
was point slope y plus 3? Where was point slope?
Point slope was y plus 3 equals 1
Agent
times x plus
Martha,
2.
Robert Platt, Jeremy King, please come to the front office.